Yesterday I was able to check out Renfield. This is the Dracula sidekick story about Dracula's sidekick Renfield that's played by Nicholas Hoult, and of course Dracula played by Nicolas Cage. Of course this was kind of mostly marketed and sold as a Nicolas Cage Dracula movie. It's thing that had me most interested in this movie, because besides that I was just kind of like whatever with this movie. The movie is oddly what I expected, but yet kind of not at the same time. I expected it to be fun, light, and just a passable watch, and it was that. It's just whenever Nicolas Cage wasn't on screen, I couldn't care less about the rest of the movie. Nicolas Cage, he's amazing here. He's great as Dracula. He just has his old Nicolas Cage stuff in this movie, and it works. He is a really great Dracula. I really thought he did a great job because it's Nicolas Cage. What else can he do wrong? Everything else, though, it was bland. It was a movie that you watch in 20 years and you're like, oh, I didn't know that movie happened. Because it just feels like it's going to die out quick. It's not going to last long. Because it just went with such a 2020 modern story to the point where it just, nothing landed. Because Nicholas Hoult, his character, he's trying to break free of Dracula, get out of his toxic relationship, and he's always a butt end of a joke, and that's your lead of the movie. And I feel like that's becoming a little overdone, where it's like the lead of your movie, like the sidekick, he's just the loser that all of a sudden turns into like this really confident, really heroic figure. It's just the comedy is built around that. Awkwafina was in this movie. I didn't even remember that she was in the trailer to this, and so when she showed up, I was like, oh yeah, she's in this, and she's fine as well. Kind of like thin motivation. Her and her sister are police officers, or work in the police department because of their dad, and blah blah blah. It's all very, very like, where it's going from the second it starts type stuff. And so that's why I was just kind of drifting from Dracula scene to Dracula scene. And whenever Dracula's on screen, it's great. Nicolas Cage is just eating it up, because I felt like the script didn't know what they really wanted to do with this movie. And I think to make this movie work, to really make it work, you need someone as Renfield just as fascinating as Dracula. And that usually could be easy to do, but the fatal flaw is that you cast Nicolas Cage as Dracula, and then Nicholas Hoult, no offense to him, an actor that's still trying to like get his big breakout moment as Renfield. It just never clicked, because you go to this movie to fall in love with Renfield and maybe fall less in love with Dracula, and this movie didn't do it for me. This movie has a lot of like action sequences filled with gore, blood, and guts. Most of the time I fall for that type of stuff and have fun with it. This movie didn't necessarily work with me with it, just because it felt bland, and it felt like a lot of the blood was CGI, obviously, and it felt like they were watching these action sequences, saw that they were bland, and then just said, if we throw a lot of blood into the screen, it'll make it work. And yes, it does provide a lot of comedic moments, and the comedy in this movie I thought was actually pretty funny. It worked very well, and there wasn't like a moment where I was like, this is so not funny. It was all really funny. It's just I didn't get intrigued with this movie. It didn't really do anything for me, sadly. At the end of the day, when this movie was done, I feel like I'm going to forget it after this review. I'm just going to be like, oh yeah, Nicolas Cage played Dracula one time, and that's about it, because the story I tried to tell, it couldn't work because of the casting of Nicolas Cage, and that's not Nicolas Cage's fault. That's the casting and the director's fault. Chris McKay directed this, and I know he did the Lego Batman movie and the Tomorrow War. Both movies I think are extremely entertaining, and I would expect a lot better from him for a movie like this, because, the Lego Batman movie, that's a movie that's supposed to be kind of like you're scratching your head as a Batman fan whether you want to like love that movie or not, but that's a really enjoyable movie. He really made it work. Well, Tomorrow War is actually a guilty pleasure of mine, so I thought this might be another guilty pleasure of mine, and sadly it didn't work for me, because I couldn't care less about the lead and his motivation, because we've seen it before. The script was a little messy. I honestly felt like the movie was paced really strangely, because I felt like we were getting scenes that are supposed to take place at the middle of the movie in the second act, and we got them in the middle of the third act, and it was really weird. I was like, this feels like a scene we'd be getting earlier in the movie, because that happened a lot. I felt maybe there was some stuff cut, and this is the shortest cut in the movie they can get it down to. I don't know. All I know is that I was very disappointed with this movie. I'm going to give it a 5.3 out of 10. Comment down below what you guys thought of Renfield. I'm curious to see what other people are thinking. I think it's just maybe not a movie for me, but at the same time, I feel like this is a movie for me to kind of turn my brain off and laugh at, but sadly, I couldn't do it this time. So yeah. Anyways, comment down below what you guys thought, and like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that, and adios.